us that we should wait until things calm down. It's not just physically making the wedding. It's hard for a couple to start off in quarantine.
Right.
So you're sitting there in the room staring at each other. There's a limit how long that can last. So we figured that we'll push it off.
Well, you got it. Where's the cousin from?
New York.
He can't even come here if he wants to.
Yeah, but technically we could probably figure out a way to make it happen. We're U.S. citizens, we can go there. But I was beginning to start working on it. When I asked the Rav if I should continue, he said, "Don't bother, push it off." And he said that the Stolen Rebbe, already Purim time, was making people cancel their weddings. He didn't like these backyard weddings or these Brooklyn street weddings. So he told everybody just to wait till this dies down, and we'll and then make a new date later.
Oh.
So we have a tentative date of June 10th or June 11th. I think June 10th, but it doesn't really mean anything because we're not even planning for it. We're not doing anything.
Were they planning to live in New York when they
Lakewood? Yeah,
they were going to live in Lakewood.
Yeah. But no one's going back to Lakewood now. Lakewood's like a hotbed of danger right now.
So much for saving on a small wedding, eh?
Yeah, the longer you wait, the more it'll cost you.
No, I'm still hoping that even if things settle down and they pull the quarantine, they're still going to outlaw large gatherings. So I'm counting on Doug Ford to save me money. I can tell Doug Ford that alone will help reduce poverty in Toronto, and in Ontario, if he limits the size of a wedding to 30 people, then that in and of itself will do it.
Yosy, when you speak, Doug Ford listens.
You never know; he might be on.
But there's going to be a backlog of weddings. I think that Mati's concept from Lakewood, where there's going to have to be 3 in a day, is going to happen.
Drive-through weddings.
Because there's just too many weddings and not enough dates. Remember, we can't get married not during the 3 weeks. I mean, maybe they'll make.
But there might be a lull because, like, how much shidduch activity has been going on recently? Like, I know somebody in Toronto who told me, his daughter gave a yes, got a yes. They're all ready to move forward, but they can't really start dating.
I have my nephew is dating in New York, and he's dating by Skype. He ended up not going home to Florida for Pesach. He made his own seder. He has an apartment near YU, and because he has to go into quarantine for 2 weeks, so like I figured, what's the point? And he ordered an art, and he sent one to the girl where he's dating, and one himself, and that was the date, and they did it together on Skype.
That's a cheap date, isn't it?
And for speed dating, they do Zoom.
I don't know if you sent her a can of soda or a can of seltzer or a bottle of water.
I don't know who, but I heard tonight there's going to be a Zoom engagement from one of our students.
What are you talking about? Rabbi Lowe's Edical had a Zoom engagement.
Right.
Yeah, they have it already. But the Chassidim especially, the Kala and the Chuzin have nothing to do with it. It's just
You have to be in different Zoom.
It's just for the Machatanim.
Yosy, is it possible to have Mekach Toys when you actually meet? You go, who was that I saw on Zoom? It wasn't you. It was somebody else.
I was in the wrong meeting room.
If you understood the culture, if you know the culture of the Chassidim who have very limited contact before they get engaged, if you know the culture of their marriage, it's not a steer. Because their relationships with their wives aren't such that they need to know much more about them than the peripheral knowledge they have from a couple of quick meetings. It's a different culture. I hung out in Williamsburg a lot. Like, I was in Williamsburg, and one of my cousins, who's a girl cousin who's married, I was in her father's house and my uncle's house. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and we're talking, and the Idem walks into Shver's house at 1:30 in the morning, and he's joining the conversation, and he's schmoozing with us. And not once, and he's on the phone with his friends, like at 1:30, everything's alive. And not once did it ever dawn on him at 1:30 in the morning, maybe he should go home to his wife. And that must be the culture there, because all his friends are that way, and he's by his father-in-law's house, so he's not even embarrassed. Like, if I was hanging out at 2 o'clock in the morning, it would not be by my father-in-law. So it must be a different culture there. It's a different relationship. Like even when they go on vacation, a lot of these people, the wives go together to Florida, and then the husbands do their own thing. So I don't know if their relationship requires so much. Maybe it's nonsense what I'm saying, but they definitely don't have.
Like Mr. Zolti always told me to say, one ticket, two vacations.
Yep. Half the price, twice the fun. Okay, let's see where we're holding. The only good news that came out yesterday is that the cost of gas went down to zero.
Below zero.
Below zero. I went to the gas station and I said, how much are you offering to pay me to fill up my tank? Because if you don't give me enough, I'll go across the street. They told me, don't go here, don't go across the street, go straight to hell. Oh, man. But that is a little bit scary.
But what does that mean? Only in the U.S., right?
No. Those are future contracts. It has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah, the cost of oil is based on, the cost of oil that you pay for a barrel today is based on the average of the past 14 days of what the contract was. So the fact that it went down to zero today will impact the average for the next 2 weeks, but it's going to jump up. No one's giving away oil for free.
Amazing how psychology works.
It's almost the same way with it's almost the same with the schools. I asked one of the directors of one of the schools yesterday, how come they're still taking, all those big tuition payments off if the school's not open? There's no hydro bill, like hydro bill has to be low. You're not using supplies that much, not using any photocopiers. You laid off all your secretaries already. Like they're all on. He told me all the secretaries were on unemployment. So why? I'm not. I know the teachers are still working. We still have to pay, but
the school's still printing. My wife made tons of
down a little bit.
I think expenses are going up because they're printing everything and sending it out.
In our school, all secretaries are working. Everybody's working. We have to regroup and figure out how to do it, remotely.
The director of the school told me that he admitted to me that just about all the secretaries have been laid off already.
Mechi is
they were on UI. We're getting UI.
Mechi is Benois Yaakov allowing Zoom meetings?
No.
So you're doing everything by phone only?
There's only so much you can admit.
The Yaakov High School is not either doing Zoom.
I know.
They're not.
To be honest with me, and I hope I personally don't agree. My son, Yosy also has this problem. They're not allowing Zoom. And I can tell you, I was sitting here yesterday watching him. He's just completely not focused. He just can't, It's
the Cheder is also not.
Huh? The Cheder wrote.
They started something.
They started Zoom and then they stopped it.
Yeah, they said no English, no Zoom.
They're going to start now having to devise a telephone that has a taser on it, so that Rebbe can patch the Kindle.
Buzzer, wasn't that buzzer? Remember in the comics they had that magic buzzer? You shake somebody's hand.
No, don't you remember the pencil? Don't you remember the pencil? How the fingers are doing,
I know it is. They're cutting their nose off. I know that they don't want to have internet, but the anti-Zoom, and I saw Rabbi Engel said the Vaad Chinuch was against it. I'm not sure how it was presented, and I don't know it's because if the teachers are not comfortable in how to use it. But
no, I think they're afraid of people having internet in their houses and getting the kids used to going on the internet. There's a lot of dangers lurking.
No, I understand that, but there's a lot of danger in having no time and the kid completely disengaged too.
But what about teaching your child how to paint your garage, how to fix your lights?
Thank you.
My kids are learning a lot. They're learning more than they've ever learned.
Yosy, if you have any,
how to rake the lawn, how to get rid of weeds. It's unbelievable.
Yosy, if you have any extra kids to come train here, I'll take one.
Yesterday, I ordered all my supplies from Canadian Tire. You can't go to the store, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to start getting our home improvement projects done. And the nice thing about it is that I haven't seen a lot of raccoons or skunks either.
We had a raccoon sitting in front of our door yesterday.
Really?
3 hours.
All you have to do, Canadian Tire, is pick a store. You call and just curbside pickup. You drive up in front of a post and tell them I'm on post number 12. They come out with your package.
I ordered it online. You could order it on the phone too. You don't have to be online.
Yeah, at Home Depot also. I picked this thing up at Home Depot.
You could do it by phone as well.
Drive to a post. They call the number and they bring it out to your car. You don't have to even line up.
Yeah, see, for Canadian Tire, you have to have the part numbers. So you look them up online, the part numbers, and then you can call into the store you want, and then they have it for you within a half an hour.
By the time I find the part number, I'll find it cheaper on Amazon.
I went to Canadian Tire. I couldn't get
Amazon's
hold.
not so cheap anymore.
I went to Canadian Tire up north. No one answered the phone. It was just ringing and ringing. But I asked one of the employee was coming out. He's coming out with the packages to all the cars. And I said, I can't get through. He says, oh, they're busy. So he asked me what my last name was. He bought me right away.
Wow. I ordered it online, and they told me to send me an email when they should come to the store. So we'll see what happens. Okay.
Staples also the same way.
I know my wife is a teacher, Miss Yaakov, and she's photocopied up a storm because they have to prepare lessons. My wife and my daughter have to prepare lessons for like a couple of weeks, and they package them in plastic bags, and then they get delivered to the students. So there's tons of photocopies going on, and they have a couple of people full-time in the Yaakov making photocopies and servicing all the teachers' orders. So it seems like they're spending a lot of money now. But I'm afraid, I'm not asking them for a tuition refund. I'm just hoping they don't come after me for more. We'll call it even,
It's a new and improved tuition.
Okay. They're going to want to start, they're going to give us their bank account number, and they're going to ask us to have our $2,000 COIL check that Trudeau's giving out go straight to them. Okay, let's see where we're holding.
Shia Schafter came to me as soon as the shul closed and says, I just want to be the first one to say to you that from the shul, I'd like a refund on my dues. And please tell Moshe Grunfeld I said that I want to know that I was the first one to come up with it. He shouldn't think that he was the first one.
Okay, does anybody remember where we left off yesterday?
Yes, by Minei
Rish Lakish.
Yeah, by Minei Rish Lakish, about 10, 12 lines down.
I'm a little bit embarrassed to ask, but what daf?
Memhe Al 1.
Okay. Let's see if I can find. Oh, right over here. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you can always go online and watch the end of yesterday's broadcast because we were. If you really need to know, I can make the last picture.
Okay. Okay. Let's see where we are over here. Zokta Heilige Gemara. Oh, we have to start recording, and then after that we have to talk about today's sponsors. So let me first start the recording.
It's recording already.
I'm sorry?
It's recording.
Oh, it is? Akiva, you turned it on? Akiva must have turned it on. Akiva? Can you unmute yourself and tell us about today's sponsors?
Broadcast is sponsored, like all week, is sponsored by the Feintuch family, Lila Nishmas, Reb Shmuel, Reb Moshe, Oliver Shalom. And we're still accepting broadcasts for the following week. I have one, I think, for 2 weeks from now. So since you're saving all that money from paying shul dues and from tuition, and all the money Trudeau is funneling directly, a little bit can come towards a sponsorship, right? Towards Zoom. And towards all the, I know it's the long distance calls to all the schools. They all have long distance numbers, 718 and 452, and it's in Utah. So those, we can defray some of those costs.
Yeah, if it seems like all of the party lines or all of the conference lines are all U.S. numbers. Someone who wants to make a lot of money could set up a conference line, a free conference line in Toronto with a local number. They'll make tons of money. I'm not sure about the markup because it'll be a free conference line, but I'm sure on the volume they'll make up for it. Okay, it's up to Hila Gemara weiter. Boy minei Reish Lakish me'er B'yochim. Reish Lakish asked the Shaila from a B'yochim. Chitim shezoron b'karka. So what's unique about this, when you plant a wheat kernel, you put it in the ground. And of course, when you put it in the ground, you're clearly declaring that my intention is no longer to treat this kernel as food. Now it's something that I'm planting that I know will deteriorate, sprout, and grow new things. So I physically distanced myself from it. So I was makated. And we're speaking about Chitim. Rashi tells us that v'adayin lo hishrishu. If they've already sprung root, now they're a plant, they're no longer food, they're surely muksa. You're not allowed to pull it out. If you pull it out, you're actually over the raisa. It's being oiker. But we're talking about just after you planted it, but it had yet, so you only were makachet from your das, but you have not yet, it has not yet physically changed. Or beitzim shetachas tarnagolis, or eggs that you physically placed under a tarnagolis hatch. Mahu, what's the halacha? Are these things muksa? Because maybe according to Reb Shimon, these are worse than the muksas that Reb Shimon says is not muksa. Kilas leila Reb Shimon muksa, where we know that Reb Shimon doesn't hold of muksa, heichid l'dochya b'yadayim. That's where you didn't physically push these things away. But heichid, like for instance, a nair that was also on Shabbos, you didn't physically push it away. It's also this issue here. Here you're physically saying, I don't want it anymore. Heichid l'dochya b'yadayim. If you physically push it away, is there muksa? Would Reb Shimon agree there that there is a din muksa? Oy dilma, or maybe loy shna, even there, Reb Shimon holds that there's no din muksa, and if you decided you wanted to eat those kernels, you could just take them out of the ground. Amarle, ein muksa le Reb Shimon, elo shemen shebener, b'shah shehutoylek, hoyel v'hoksel mitzvah, so hoksel isur. So he made a very broad statement, and he said, according to Reb Shimon, there's no muksa at all, except for shemen in an air while it's actually burning. And what's the reason? What's the criteria to be able to cross the threshold of muksa, according to Reb Shimon? You need to have two things. While the ner is lit, the ner Shabbos is lit, it's set aside for the mitzvah of ner Shabbos. And huksel yisurai, Rashi says there's an iser kibbur, you're not allowed to put it out. So it seems like the two components together, you need to have two separate components that create muksa. A, it's huksel mitzvasai, and B, it's huksel yisurai. One without the other would not work. You need to have two ingredients, and these two ingredients only will create an iser muksa. Now, going back to the case of chitim, there's no huksel mitzvasai, there's no huksel yisurai. You just redachi b'yadayim. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan felt that according to Reb Shimon, there's no Isser Muksa on these planted kernels, and the Gemara does not change from that. The Shakal B'Tari that we're about to have is analyzing his broad statement that you need to have two different things to cause Muksa according to Reb Shimon. But it seems to be completely resolved that according to Reb Shimon, if you planted a wheat kernel and it had not yet sprouted, for sure, that would not be Muksa. And now the Gemara is going to analyze the truth of what Rabbi Yochanan said. So are you stating, Rabbi Yochanan, that according to Rabbi Shimon, if it's only huksal mitzvasai, it would not be muksa? I'm going to prove to you that Rabbi Shimon holds, even if it's only huksal mitzvasai and there's no isser at all, it's also muksa, according to Rabbi Shimon. Well, Tanya, we learned, and this is a brayso we learned a while ago, the Mesilas Shas says on Chafez, Sichecha kilchasa. If you put the schacha on the sukkah properly, and we're talking about a sukkah on sukkahs, the itra b'kramen uvesadinim, and you adorned your sukkah with drapes and different types of nice colored fabrics, hametzuyon, v'talabai goyim, and you hung in your sukkah nuts, afarsikin, peaches, shkedim, almonds, v'rimonim, and pomegranates, v'arfachli shel anovim, and clusters of grapes, the itra shel shiboilin, and wreaths of shiboilin, of stalks, yenos, shimonim, v'saltos. And Rashi says, and maybe someone can explain to me why, because I don't know why Rashi says this, but thank you very much. By yenos, shimonim, and saltos, Rashi says, in a glass bottle. Rashi says, let me look at Rashi. If you look here at the side, yenos, shimonim, b'chlei zechuchas. I'm not sure why Rashi is telling us. Is Rashi trying to tell us, you might think you're just going to suspend the wine in the air, or the flour, you'll suspend it in the air. Kamashlan, it was in a glass bottle. Like, I'm not sure why Rashi saw the need to tell us that it's in a glass bottle.
If it's a decoration, what difference does it make if it's in a klicheres? You can't see it.
Oh, so it's glass that it's clear. That's where Rashi's point is.
Yeah, because it's for decoration.
I thought Rashi meant say glass and not plastic. Oh, so it means that's clear. Okay, no, here, very good. That makes partial sense. Otherwise, it's not a decoration if you don't see it. But that Torah, because in those days, really the only two receptacles they had available to them was either glass which is transparent, or anything else, metal, cheres, any other thing was not transparent. That's a good point. However, if you made a t'nai when you put these on in the first place, it's all according to the t'nai. So let's just look what this brisa says. This brisa says any nai sukkah are usher not just on Yom Tov, where it's usher to take them down, where there's huksal mitzvasai and huksal isurai. It says ad motzei Yom Tov achron, meaning even chalamoid, where there's no isser to take things apart. The only isser possible is because it was huksal mitzvasai. It's still usher to use. So you see, this brisa clearly holds that huksal mitzvasai enough is enough to usher something else muksa. Now we just need to know who said that this Mishnah or this brisa that we quoted is Reb Shimon. Umimaid Reb Shimon. How do we know that this is going according to Reb Shimon? The Tanya Reb Chiba Yosef Kamed Reb Yochanan. Ein noitin eitzim in asukah b'Yom Tov. Now this Yom Tov that we're talking about is not sukkahs. It's Pesach or Shavuos. If you happen to have had a hut outside, you had a sukkah outside. You used it as a gazebo to protect you from the sun, and you need wood. You're on Pesach. You're on Shavuos, you need some wood, or firewood, whatever you need wood for. You're not allowed to go and just tear a piece of wood off the sukkah. If you have some extra wood that's not part of the structure of the sukkah, that's lying around there during the sukkah, that you would be allowed to use. But you're not allowed to use wood from the actual sukkah. Reb Shimon matir, and Reb Shimon is matir, because Reb Shimon doesn't hold of this muksa machmas iser. But v'shavin, v'sukkah sachag. So buy a sukkah on Pesach where there's no huksal mitzvasai, because this is just a hut that you have for your own personal use. Yet because of the isser of taking it apart, that's why it's not allowed. And Reb Shimon's matir, because Reb Shimon holds that it's not a problem of vinyan. The article actually explains why Reb Shimon holds there's no problem of taking from it. I looked it up yesterday. But I forgot what it said, but he explains why it's mutter. In note number 18, he says, it's speaking where a hut was collapsed. If it was collapsed, you're not allowed to use it. Shouldn't hold you allowed to take from it, it's collapsed, the chamar machmer, even if it was collapsed. So you're not being over soiser. But the punchline is, the shoving besukkah achad b'chad, but if we're talking about a sukkah on sukkahs, she yasura, everybody agrees it's also. So even if Shimon holds that an isser doesn't make muksa, nevertheless, Reb Shimon holds that the huksal mitzvasai makes it also. So you clearly see that Reb Shimon holds huksal mitzvasai alone is enough to create an isser. And from his naleya of kolfik noi. So the problem now is, how could you, Rabbi Yochanan, say that the only thing Reb Shimon asers is something that's huksal mitzvasai and huksal isurai? I just proved to you that Reb Shimon would aser muksa something that's only huksal mitzvasai, even though it's not huksal isurai. Zok Kumar, you're right. We're going to have to modify a little bit our understanding of what Rabbi Yochanan said. Zok Kumar, what Rabbi Yochanan meant when he said Ke'en Sheven Shebener Kamrinon, the only thing that Reb Shimon aser muksa is something that's like Sheven Shebener. Hoyel v'huksal mitzvasai huksal isurai. And he sticks in the word hoyel. And Rashi explains, and this is a little bit difficult, and I'm hoping you'll be able to help me. So let's look at it inside. Rashi says on the Ke'en Sheven Kamina is Veloy Mishum Isser. Indeed, it's not Muksa Machmas Isser, plays no role in this at all. What Rabbi Yochanan meant by sticking in Huksal Isuri was El Mishum Mitzvah. The only thing that we care about is that this Ner is Huksa for the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, not because there's an Isser Kibui. Zok Rashi, the Hoyel the Huksal Mitzvah, this Shabbos, since it's set aside, this Ner, while it's lit, is set aside to the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, Huksa l'chol zman Isser blekasai. How long is this Ner Muksa for? It's Muksa for the entire time that it's lit, because you're not allowed to put it out. Technically, if you'd be allowed to put it out, then there's no more fire. It won't be Huksal Mitzvah anymore. But since you have an Isser Kibui, now the Huksal Mitzvah period is going to extend until the Ner goes out naturally. V'lo Yosy. But once it goes out, there is no more Huksal Mitzvah. The Ein Mitzvah Ela B'Shvas L'Kasei. the Huxel Mitzvah is only while the candle is burning. Umishakaba, once the ner is extinguished, Ein Boy Mitzvah, there's no more mitzvah anymore. Al Basukas Achag, Mitzvah Kol Shiva. There the mitzvah lasts all 7 days, and therefore you're not allowed to touch any of the noy sukkah or the body of the sukkah for 7 days. So really what it's saying, the way I understand it is, since the ner is osir because of Huxel Mitzvah for the entire period of time that it's lit, because you're not allowed to put it out, therefore the Huxel Mitzvah lasts the entire period that it's osir to put it out. That's how I understand Rabbi Yochanan's explanation of Rabbi Shimon's halacha. So when I read the Gemara and I see Rabbi Yochanan's words was Hoil v'Huxel Mitzvah Huxel Yisurai, since it's Huxel Mitzvah, that's why it's Huxel Yisurai. I would have said it differently. I would have said Hoil v'Huxel Yisurai, since you're not allowed to put out the ner because it's an Isher Kiboy, therefore Huxel Mitzvah. Therefore the Huxel Mitzvah lasts until the ner goes out naturally. That's how I understand it, and that's how Rashi seems to be explaining it. But it doesn't fit so well into the words of Hoyel v'Huxel Mitzvah Huxel Yisurai. So if anybody can explain that to me, I would appreciate that, because I don't see how it fits in Geshmak with the words. I need someone to make it like a clear glass, so it should be crystal clear. Because right now it's just like Cheres. Okay, talk to the more weiter. So I'll call upon at this point.
Yosy, the fact that it's a mitzvah, I mean, why would it be a problem to begin with? Because you need the mitzvah of ner, you need the mitzvah of sukkah to make it something, and then the time slot is based on how much the isser is. So the isser, the mitzvah. Meaning,
so the muksa is the muksa mitzvah.
Wait, the isser doesn't make it muksa. Isser doesn't make a muksa.
No, Isser just makes it that I can't put it out. Since I can't put it out,
Isser defines the time. The Isser defines the time. The mitzvah defines the muksa. The Isser defines the time.
Correct. So shouldn't it say Hoyel v'Huxel Yisurai? Since the Isser extends the time period until the point that the ner extinguishes, therefore Huxel Mitzvah, therefore the Isser muksa period extends till the end of that time.
I hear what you're saying.
So I'm not sure, but I'll call the facts are the same. The facts are that according to Reb Shimon, it's only Huxel Mitzvah independent of any other thing that creates a Isser Muksa, and the Isser is just a practical restriction that extends that period of time until the light goes out by itself.
Right. I mean, our school says in that way, since it was set aside for a mitzvah, right? Mm-hmm. It is set aside for the duration of the provision of the terminating the mitzvah, as long as that lamp burns. I hear what you're saying with the words, but it seems the meaning is the same.
Yeah. Okay, so Zok to Gemara. So now we're at the point where we know two facts. Fact A is Dachi b'yadayim, according to Reb Shimon, does not make muksa, and fact B is that there's no problem of Huxel Yisurai. There's only a problem of Huxel Mitzvah. Itmanami Amar Reb Chia Amar Reb Yechanan. Reb Chia is telling them Reb Yechanan, Ein muksa Reb Shimon, ela ke'en shemen shebener. The only type of muksa that exists, according to Reb Shimon, in Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, is something ke'en shemen shebener b'shashu dailek hayel v'huxel mitzvah huxel yisurai. Same comment that we made over here. Now we have a disagreement. Not everybody agrees with Rabbi Yochanan in how to understand Reb Shimon. There are people who have different opinions. Amar Rabbi Shmuel, ein muksa Reb Shimon ela groigus v'tzimukam l'vav umidi achrin lo. So Rashi tells us what are groigus v'tzimukam. Rashi says it's groigus te'enim. Groigus are figs. Shemayim lagag liyavshan. You put them up on the roof to dry them out, because you can buy fresh figs and you can buy dried figs. So here you have fresh figs. You put them up on the roof and they started to dry. Once they started to dry, then they're in no man's land. Now they're no longer edible at all until they finish drying out completely. Unlike pickles, that you have half sour pickles, the entire pickling process from the time it's a cucumber till the time it's a full pickle, you can eat it. It's edible. But these figs and these grapes that you're drying out to make into raisins, while they're in the middle of drying, they're not edible at all. So they're useless completely. And Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel says that according to Rabbi Shimon, the only things that are going to be muksa are groigus v'tzumukam lupat. So, which means that the way he's understanding of Shimon of there is if something is not usable for anything at all, only then it's a muksa. Which means that if it's not edible, it's also muksa. While the way I understood Rabbi Yechanan is only if it's huksa l'mitzvosai would there be a din muksa. Rabbi Yehuda Mishmul is extending it to anything that's completely unusable will also be muksa. And you're saying it doesn't include anything else. For Tanya we learned. So right now, just to clarify, Rabbi Yehuda Mishmul is saying it only applies to fruits that are not edible at all. But Tanya we learned, you were in the middle of eating fresh figs, and you had more than you were able to eat, so you have some extra ones. Now, you don't want them to go bad, so what do you do with these extra ones? The hell on the gag, you put them up on the roof to dry out. Now, they were still good. You didn't leave it. Unlike the Gregos with Simukim that we were discussing earlier, that they stayed there for a while and now they're not edible, these Ta'anim, you just put them up there and they're perfectly edible. But in your mind, you decided that you're going to let them dry out. Or Banovim, you were eating grapes, Bahoiser, the hell on the gag, Lasas meant Simukim. You want to make raisins. So the halach is now they're muksa. And if you want to be able to eat them again, lo yochli, you can't eat them, achi yasmin, until you physically take them down and prepare them to make into an oichel. So in other words, since you did an action that took away their shem oichel, you put them up on the roof to dry. Now, to reverse that, you have to take an action to make them back into an oichel.
It's the same as Kitan Shazar, right? Same.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. And the same thing would apply with a farsikin, which was peaches, and chavushin rashis quince. So maybe there's a fruit called the quince. So anything that you designated in your mind and you put up on the roof to dry, in order to make them back into food, you have to make an action to make them back into food. Uvishar kol minei pears, and other pears have the same halach. So this anonymous brisa is following who? Ilam Rabbi Yehuda. If it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't make sense because this brisa is not a chiddush according to Rabbi Yehuda. Because Uma hechet l'dachi b'yadayim isle muksa. Rabbi Yehuda is machmer and muksa. Even if something on its own becomes muksa. For instance, Rashi says, if you just put these pears in an oitzer, in the storage room, which doesn't indicate whether or not it's going to be for an oichel or to be for drying, it's neutral. Even there, Rabbi Yehuda holds it's muksa. If you put it up on the roof, where you're clearly showing you don't want it to be an oichel anymore, like Kolshkin, surely Rabbi Yehuda would hold that's muksa. So the fact that the brisa picked a case where you did some physical action to be medachet biyadayim, that clearly shows that this brisa is not following Rabbi Yehuda. It'll allow Rabbi Shimon. This must be Rabbi Shimon. And you see here from Rabbi Shimon, that not only Gregos with Tzumukim that are completely not edible are muksa according to Rabbi Shimon, but even foods that are edible that you pushed away and that you designated to be dried, even those are going to be muksa. And that's going to be a shver on Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Rabbi Yehuda, let's say this price is going according to Rabbi Yehuda. You told me, why would Rabbi Yehuda tell us this case, which is not a chiddush, because you don't need to be medachet something b'yadayim in order to make something muksa. There's a very big difference. This case started with a story, which really wasn't relevant to the story at all. Why is it telling us he was eating this te'anim? He was eating this te'anim means he made a very strong declaration that this fruit is edible, it's food. So you might think, even though I put it up on the roof, but since I was eating it a moment before, it doesn't lose yet its shem oichel. So since he just finished eating it and now he put it up on the roof, it would be considered an oichel even without doing something physical to make it into an oichel because he was just eating it. Kamash malon, even the hell on the gag. Once you take such a drastic action and you take this fruit and you put them up on the roof, that's a very significant action, and therefore, even though you were eating it before, asuchi aschi lidatayim. So Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul is fine as well, and that is only non-edible fruit would be considered muksa according to Rav Shimon. Boy minei Reb Shimon bar Rebbe. Rebbe had a son, Reb Shimon, and his son asked him the following question. And he asked him a question in the Shita of Reb Shimon. And this was the question that he asked. Pitzali Tamar. Pitzali Tamar, Rashi tells us, are dates that were picked off the tree before they were ripened. We store them in a basket made out of lulav, and they ripen in the basket. So while they're ripening, they're not really an oichel, they're not really edible. But what if someone decided that he wants to eat those dates? So now the question is the fact that he wants to eat them is become an oichel. So Batzila Tamra, Reb Shimon Mahu. So he wants to eat these dates on Shabbos. And the question is he allowed to eat them and they're not muksa? Or may he not eat them because they're muksa? Armalei. So Rebbe answered, according to Reb Shimon, Ein mukshal Reb Shimon, ela grogis v'tzemukim b'vad. Only grogis v'tzemukim, Rashi says, the ikatarti has two things, the dechinu b'yadayim and lechazi. So you need two components still to make it usher, even if you can't eat it. A, it had to be dechinu b'yadayim, you put them up on the roof to dry. And B, is they're not edible. Masha'enkin, patila tamra, even though they're not ready yet, but you weren't doichel them b'yadayim. To the contrary, you wanted to eat them. And therefore, according to Reb Shimon, Rebbe Paskin, that this would be mutter to eat. So Zok to Gemara, the fact that Rebbe engaging in a whole analysis of Reb Shimon Shita as to what's mutter and what's usher, that would indicate that Rebbe holds like Reb Shimon. Rebbe must paskin Allah Chalamai, like Reb Shimon, and he's very mekel in Hilchos Muksa. Because otherwise, why would he be busy engaging in this shaila, according with his son Reb Shimon bar Rebbe, about Reb Shimon the Tana Shita, if in fact it wasn't again anyway halalacha? We're soon going to see that there's nothing wrong with engaging in understanding the Shita of somebody, even though you don't paskin like them. It's lomdus, tarihi, Lomer. But at this point in the Gemara feels that Rebbe would not have engaged in his son Shimon and discussed the Shita of Reb Shimon the Tana and Muksa if he didn't paskin like him. So the Gemara asks for Rebbe Leslie Muksa, are you saying Rebbe holds like Reb Shimon who doesn't hold of Muksa? And again, Leslie Muksa doesn't really mean he doesn't hold of Muksa at all. But Vibat Reb Shimon was very, very limited in where he applied the Issa Muksa. The Gemara always says that Reb Shimon doesn't hold of Muksa. So you tell me Rebbe holds like Reb Shimon? Vatnan, ein mashkin v'sheichtin esamit boris. Here we're discussing, on Yom Tov, you're allowed to shecht animals. You're allowed to prepare them for eating. And the norm was, whenever they shechted an animal, before they shechted it, they would give it to drink water. Why? Not because of a last meal before an execution. They would give it to drink water because if the animal drank water right before it was shechted, it would make it very easy to strip off its hide. So it was a normal thing that was done. So the question is on Yom Tov, which animals are considered prepared, and therefore you can shecht them and use them, and which animals are not considered prepared, and therefore they'd be usher, they'd be muksa on Yom Tov. And it says, "Ein mashkin v'sheichtin esamit boris." You're not allowed to give to drink, and you're not allowed to shecht wild animals. We're not talking about like lions and tigers, but they're wild cows, things that are not domesticated. Mashkin, the ones that are domestic, you're allowed to. They're prepared. They're considered non-muksa. Now, what exactly means domesticated versus midbar? Yes, the Tanya Elohim midbar. Yes, if an animal leaves the pen, leaves your barn, leaves your farm in the summer, and doesn't come back until after Sukkot and Cheshvan when it starts to rain, that's called an animal that's not domesticated. Even though it hangs out in your barn during the winter months for shelter, nevertheless, since it spends a big part of the year out in the wild, that's not called mucham, and you wouldn't be able to shecht those animals on Yom Tov. Baisos, what are domesticated ones? Animals that only go on day trips, but they always return back to the stall for the evening. Those are considered muchan, and those are the ones that you're allowed to shecht on Yom Tov. Rebbe Lomer, elu ve'elu baisosin. Even if they go out for 6 months at a time, we still consider domesticated because they still come back. So you see, they're connected to me. Ve'elu and midborius, what are ones that are usher, that are not muchan? Animals that always stay out at the pasture and they never come in, those are wild animals. Now, you see Rebbe over here is engaging in what's a muksa animal. Well, guess what? According to Reb Shimon, none of these will be muksa. Reb Shimon doesn't hold to this muksa at all. According to Reb Shimon, all these animals would be allowed to shech. So the fact that the Rebbe is engaging in the Tanakama to understand what's considered muksa, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that would indicate that Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Zok Lomer. So now we have a steer. On the one hand, Rebbe was engaged in understanding Rabbi Shimon's shita, but from this brisa you see that Rebbe was engaged in understanding Rabbi Yehuda's shita. So who is it that Rebbe really holds like? Will the real Rebbe please rise? Iba Yisema Hakanami. Either you could say that Rebbe holds like Rabbi Shimon, but animals that never ever come in are considered so much removed from the human that it's kigregus v'tzimukin tamid. We consider that it's gregus v'tzimukin, and Rashi gives a little bit of an understanding, and he says midbari isnami kigregus tamid did the chinibidayim. First of all, you pushed them away. I'm not sure exactly how that happened. Maybe because you sent the animals out of the stall originally, and they never came back. And it's very difficult to start running around to find these animals. So that makes them on the level of Gregus Vitzamukim. And in fact, this brisa that we thought was Rabbi Yehuda's shita, maybe even Rabbi Shimon would be moida that animals that are always out, that are rois befer, those are, even according to Rabbi Shimon, they would be asher to shech. That was the first teretz. Or there's another pshat you could say, that really Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and Rebbe's opinion in this brisa is what he really holds, and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda of Muksa. Why was Rebbe engaging in understanding the shita of Rabbi Shimon to respond to his son's question? He was just harving and learning to understand Rabbi Shimon's shita, but that's not really who he holds like. Or maybe for Pumvakert, he holds like Reb Shimon, and that's why he engaged his son in understanding the shita of Reb Shimon. But in the brisa, he was just trying to understand Reb Yehuda's shita, but he himself disagrees anyway and holds as no muksa. And he said in the brisa, "L'didi lesli muksa klau." I really hold all of these animals. You can shech, no problem. But l'didchu, according to you, Rabbanan, who want to hold of muksa because you pass like Reb Yehuda, oidu li mihas, at least agree to me that even according to Reb Yehuda, the echad diyotzis for Pesach. At least agree to me, even in Rabbi Yehuda, these animals you're allowed to shech. And Rabbanan rejected that and said that according to Rabbi Yehuda, even those would be muksa. So the question is, who was the real Rebbe? What did he really hold? Somebody once told me a story about a ger chuzut who lived in America, and when he was in America, he didn't wear levush. He wore a down hat, short jacket. But when he went to Israel, when he went to Israel, and he went to Ger, so he would put on a spodek and he would put on a vakachet because he wanted to, be one of the boys. And one day he was speaking to the Ger Rebbe, and he told the Ger Rebbe, I feel very uncomfortable. I feel like I'm a fraud because, at home I dress normally, and here I put this lavush on. I feel like a little bit of a fraud. So the Ger Rebbe said, really, you feel like a fraud here? I always thought that you felt like a fraud in America. I was wondering who the real you is. So here too, we're looking for the real Rebbe. Does he hold like Rabbi Shimon or does he hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Zok more weiter. Yes.
I want to give you a special Yasher Koyach. Because this Gemara is a Gemara in Be'ah, and if you remember, I made a siyum on Masechtas Be'ah about 2 months ago, and I
with a special bottle of Bronfen.
Right, and I wasn't. Right, I wasn't able to understand this Rebbe, and now you finally explained this Rebbe to me. So Yasher Koyach, thank you.
What do you mean?
I couldn't understand what the Gemara was talking about in the Gemara in Be'ah. This is the last Gemara in Be'ah. As a matter of fact, I stood before the Oren and I read this Gemara without fully understanding it. So now I'm going to take another bottle of schnapps.
Oh, mazel tov.
And
I want to thank you for teaching us why it's important to drink schnapps.
Oh,
that was a very revealing and important watershed moment.
Okay, I won't take any more time of everybody now.
Oh, now that Chaim Tzvi piped up, I want to remind the Olam, I posted online from what Chaim Tzvi sent me about the controversy between the Rambam and the Vilna Gaon about remedies in the Torah that the Rambam said sometimes don't work, and the Vilna Gaon protested strongly without diminishing one iota of his extreme reverence of the Rambam, because the Gra was a big fan of the Rambam, and he only aspired to have the Madriga of the Rambam, even though he disagreed with him about this point. Amar Rabba Babachan Amar B'Yochanan. Amru halacha. So listen to this. Amar Rabba Babachan Amar B'Yochanan. Amru halacha Reb Shimon. So Rabbi Yochanan seemed to say that halacha is like Reb Shimon. So we had earlier also Rish Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan a shaila, what would Reb Shimon hold about those seeds that you planted but didn't sprout? And Rabbi Yochanan said, according to Reb Shimon, the only muksa is ka'en there. So Rabbi Yochanan also seems to be very involved in Reb Shimon Shita. So just like we said in Rebbe, that Rebbe seems to hold like Reb Shimon, Gemara is making the same assumption with Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan seems to hold like Reb Shimon. In fact, the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, did Rabbi Yochanan actually pass on like Reb Shimon that there's no muksa? But once upon a time, an old man from the city of Korea came to ask Rabbi Yochanan Shaila. And some people say that the old man did not come from Korea. He didn't come from Korea. He came from Syria. Those are my own types. I don't think those are the real places. They went to ask Rabbi Yochanan the following Shaila. I have a bird cage. Am I allowed to carry a bird cage on Shabbos? So Rabbi Yochanan told him, all this bird cage is made for are for chickens. Chickens are muksa rashas. It's a klisha malachta le'eser, because chickens are muksa. But also, alma is muksa. So you see right off the bat, Rabbi Yochanan paskin halacha l'maisa like Rabbi Yehuda. So why is Rabbi Yochanan being busy, delving in to understanding the shita of Rabbi Shimon right off the bat? When Rabbi Yochanan was actually asked a real shaila, he said that he paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. He said it's muksa. So Gemara, no. From that psak, that doesn't show that he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Even Rabbi Shimon would hold that bird cage would be muksa. Why is that? There's a dead bird in there, and a dead bird is useless. And Rashi tells us, why can't you feed it to a dog? Rashi says, because dead birds, even a dog won't eat. They'll eat dead meat, but they don't eat dead birds. So that would make sense if you hold that Reb Shimon holds that dead animals are muksa. Even though Reb Shimon is very limited in where he applies muksa, but Reb Shimon would hold that dead animals, nevelas, are muksa. Ela lemar bered Reb Yosy mishmei derava Lomer cholakay Reb Shimon afilu b'balei chaim shemesu shein mutarin. But if Reb Shimon Shita is that even a dead bird is going to be non-muksa, Michael Lomer, why did Rabbi Yochanan tell this old man that he's not allowed to carry his bird cage around? Even if it had a dead bird in it, it should still have been mutter to carry that bird cage around. So there's an egg inside it. The reason why he didn't let him carry the bird cage is because there was an egg inside it. And an egg is noilad, and even Reb Shimon holds that noilad is usher, because we're talking about an egg that was actually hatched on Shabbos. In fact, the Gemara, Amar Nachman man the Islay Muksa, Islay Noilad, the Leslie Muksa, Leslie Noilad. Reb Nachman Shita is that Reb Shimon does not hold of the prohibition of Noilad. So again, why did Rabbi Yochanan prohibit the old man from carrying his bird cage?
Sorry, Yosy, the issue of Noilad is to use it or to touch it?
Both.
You're not allowed to touch
it's a strong
Noilad?
muksa. Okay. Yeah, we actually, normally muksa you're allowed to move, but we actually had a shita that holds noilad, which is more chomer, you're not even allowed to touch.
Okay. That's good.
My pleasure. But even if you could touch it, you're not allowed to move it. So the fact that there was an egg that was hatched on Shabbos in this bird cage would make the bird cage muksa, even according to Reb Shimon. So tomorrow the itzvah beitz is a froyach. There's not a regular egg in there that you could scrabble and make into a sunny side up. The egg that's in there has a fully developed chicken inside. It just didn't hatch yet. So that for sure is muksa, because that not a chaya, no one's going to eat that. That's complete muksa.
How could you tell?
I can't tell, but I guess there are ways for people to tell. I'm sure a farmer would know if the egg has a chicken inside. Maybe it's moving a little bit before it hatches.
I always wondered, how do they know to put it into the carton? It doesn't have a chicken in
it. They candle it.
What does that mean?
You hold the egg up to it used to be a candle. Now they do it with an optical sensor.
You can actually see through it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hold up your iPhone light and you can see the egg inside. You can see.
I still think the guy doing it should prank everybody and put once a chicken in there.
You've never had, my brother once had, he opened an egg, went to crack an egg, and there was a chicken inside. Somehow it made it through the candling.
Okay, so
it was gross.
He also Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef, Omer Rabbi Yochanan. When Rabbi Yosef came in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he said, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shua ben Levi. I'm sorry, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Omer Halacha Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Yitzchak paskin in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. So we've been going back and forth all this time to understand what Rabbi Yochanan held. We just twisted ourselves into a pretzel to try to explain the psak of Rabbi Yochanan to the old man that it should be consistent even with Rabbi Shimon. But Rabbi Yitzchak came right out and said, what are you talking about? I heard in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shua ben Levi Amar halacha Rabbi Shimon. But Rabbi Yitzchak clearly said that he heard that Rabbi Yochanan said halacha Rabbi Yehuda, which is going to be a little bit of a problem because if you remember earlier, we had that Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi B'chana Rabbi Yochanan Amar halacha Rabbi Shimon. So now we have a little bit of a stira. Is Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Shimon or is Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yosef Hani de Amar Rabbi B'chana Rabbi Yochanan Amru halacha Rabbi Shimon. There it says Amru. Here it says in Rabbi Yitzchak it says halacha Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Yehuda. There Rabbi Yochanan said Amru halacha Rabbi Shimon, meaning Rabbi Yochanan said over Amru. There are those who say that halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. Amru. There are those who say that, but v'leilo svirle. So Rabbi Yitzchak is clarifying that Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rabbi Yehuda, but he mentioned that there are those who pass like Rabbi Shimon. So that's the final answer in Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rabbi Yehuda and he's machmer by muksa. It's 8:15. I'm not sure if the item wants to continue to the end of the block. It's 8:17, or if we should stop here. Does the item want to go weiter? Okay, so we'll go a little weiter. I don't want to fall more behind. Zok to Gemara weiter. Amalei Abaye le Rabbi Yosef. So Abaye asked Rabbi Yosef, "Va'at le Tizbura, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yehuda? You seem to have just discovered America that you found Rabbi Yitzchak that says that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. But the problem is, and Rabbi Yosef quoted it, oh, now I know what's going on over here. Since Rabbi Yitzchak said over that Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rabbi Yehuda, now I understand things. Frekt Abaye to his Rebbe Rabbi Yosef, you always knew, even before you heard Rabbi Yitzchak, you always knew that Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rabbi Yehuda. Va'at le Tizbura, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda, you always knew that Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rabbi Yehuda long before you ever heard this memra from Rabbi Yitzchak. How do I know that? Because Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Asi, Kloi Levei Rabbi Abba, the Min Haifa. Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Asi went to visit Rabbi Abba from Haifa. So there were two Rabbi Abbas and one of them lived in Haifa. And while he was at the house on Shabbos, Novel Menarta al Galima de Rabbi Asi. His jacket was hanging over there, maybe it was on the floor, and a menorah candelabra fell on Rabbi Asi's jacket. Now the question is, in order for him to get his jacket, he has to move the menorah, Veloy Tiltala. And Rabbi Asi did not take his jacket because he didn't want to move the menorah. My time, why would he not have wanted to move the menorah? It must be the Rabbi Asi was Rabbi Yochanan's Talmud. And Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda, just like Muksa. So you yourself, Rabbi Yosy, know this story. You know this story, and at that point, Rabbi Asi clearly demonstrated from the fact that he didn't want to take his jacket that we paskin like Rabbi Yochanan paskins like Rabbi Yehuda of Muksa. Omer Lei, so Rabbi Yosy said, no, from that story you don't have a raya, and from that story even Rabbi Shimon would have answered to take the jacket out from under the candelabra. Why is that? You're asking me a kasha from a candelabra? Menarta shiny. Why is a candelabra different? It's a much bigger thing than just a little nair. The Amar Abacha, Barchanina Amar Abasi, Hoyer Rish Lakish Betzidon, Rish Lakish Paskin in Sidon, Menoyer had nitlis biyada yachas, a smaller candelabra that you can carry with one hand, mutter latalpia. That's mutter to move on Shabbos, that's not muksa. But b'shtei yodav, if it's a massive menorah that requires a lot of effort to lift, also latalpia, that will be muksa. Even according to Rabbi Shimon, and the Gemara is going to shortly explain why. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan said, Ein anu ein lanu ela b'ner Rabbi Shimon, alva menorah ve'nitla b'yadai achas, ve'nitla b'shtei yadav, also the taltala. So you see, Rabbi Yochanan holds that by candelabra, even Rabbi Shimon is more than it's also. So Zok Rabbi Yosef, there's no raya from that story that anybody passes like Rabbi Yehuda, because even Rabbi Shimon would hold that a candelabra is muksa, and therefore if it's pinning your jacket down, you wouldn't be able to take your jacket out. Now, what's so unique about a candelabra that everybody agrees, even Rabbi Shimon, that you're not allowed to move it? The time of my Rabbi Yosef, Tamitavayu, Hoyel v'Adam Kavei Alamokim. With something that's very big, gets placed in one place, and it's never moved from that place. And that's a reason to make something muksa, since it's something that's never ever meant to be moved. And because of that, it was iyasivit. Amalei Rabbi Yosef, are you telling me something very permanent is something that will be muksa according to Rabbi Shimon? Chilas chasanim was a canopy that they built over the bed of a chasan kala. And I'm just going to put my thing over it. It looked like this. So there was 4 posts, and then the canopy was not an oil because it was held up only by 1 post, so it came to a point. And that's significant because we're soon saying that you're allowed to take this apart on Shabbos, and you're only allowed to take it apart because it doesn't have the halacha of an oil. If it wasn't oil, you would not be able to take it apart on Shabbos. But V'amar Shmuel Moshe Rabchia, Chilas Chasanim, Mutter L'Natoisa, Umutter L'Farka B'Shabbos. You're allowed to set it up and take it down on Shabbos. Now that's something that's very permanent. Nevertheless, we're saying that you are allowed to move it around on Shabbos. So how could you say that this candelabra, which is so big, is usher because it's made to be there permanently? Amar Abaye, nothing to do with that. The reason why the menorah was muksa was for a whole different reason. The shelchilyos. It was a menorah that was made out of little small pieces. And Rashi says the reason why you're not allowed to move it is shema tipoil v'tisparik. If you move it, it might fall apart. The pieces might fall apart. And then you'll put it back together. Then you'll be over deraisa. So he's asking to move this menorah because of a chashash that it might fall apart. And if it falls apart and you put it back together on Shabbos, that'll come to a malacha deraisa. Correct the Gemara. That's a real problem. My time with Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish the Shari. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said that a big menorah, that a small menorah, if it's noitel b'yadei achas, you could move it around. If it could fall apart, it should be the same danger. So the Gemara, my chulyo is ke'en chulis. It doesn't really mean that it was a sectional menorah, but it was a menorah that had grooves in it that it appeared to be a sectional menorah, but it wasn't really a sectional menorah. The isbechitki, it had grooves and lines that made it look like it was sectional. So we have now a menorah that looks like a sectional menorah. Hilchach. So let's see how the chips fall. Chulyois, ben gedoyla, ben katana, asura. If it's actually made out of pieces, no matter if it's a big menorah or a small menorah, it's going to be asur. Why will it be asur? Because when you handle it, it might fall apart, and if you put it back together, you'll be over the deraisa of makabeh papush. Now, asur lataltla. Gedoyla, if it's a large menorah, nami, this bechitki, if it has only markings that make it look like it's made out of pieces, but not really made out of pieces, gzera atu gedoyla decholius. No, that's interesting because the whole cholius would only be gzera. Maybe it's a bigger chashash. That's a good point. I didn't even think to ask that kasha, but it's a very good kasha. Why isn't that a gzera? I don't know. I don't know. It's a very good point Mati's asking. The whole reason why you would aser a menorah shel cholius, maybe it's so common that it's not even gzera. It's so common by moving it that it'll fall apart. But I don't know. The kasha is better than any boich I can say to answer it. So everyone hears what he's asking. Why would you aser a menorah that looks like a menorah shel cholios? A menorah shel cholios is only aser because it might fall apart and you're going to put it back together. So chitki only looks like such a gzera. So it's a very, very good question. So Zok to Gemara, Hilcha Cholius Ben Gedol Ben Kali Asura L'Taltla. Gedoyla Asur L'Taltla. Gedoyla Nami Dis Bechitki. Even if it's a big menorah that only looks like a menorah of Cholios, Gezerah Atu Gedoyla Cholios. We'll asur it because people will think that you're handling a large menorah with Cholios, because it was very common for large menorah to be made out of pieces. Smaller menorahs were never sectional because they're small to begin with. Ki pligi Bektani Dis Bechitki. Mar Sover Gaisrinan, Rabbi Yochanan held you have to be geyser that people will think it's a a menorah of pieces, and therefore it should be usher. Because it wasn't that common to have a menorah, such a small menorah of pieces. So again, we're right now at the point where we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan paskins like Rabbi Yehuda, and the Gemara tried to challenge it because Rabbi Yochanan said B'ner Reb Shimon. All right, so we're still at that point because we're still at that point where Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan seems to say that we're paskining like Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yitzchak clarified that Rabbi Yochanan passes Rabbi Yehuda, and we had a kasha. Why do we need Rabbi Yitzchak? Rabbi Yosy should have known it anyway from the story of Rabbi Yosy, and the Gemara answered that the story of Rabbi Yosy is not a raya. The story of Rabbi Asi and the candelabra is not a raya because there's many other reasons why that should be muksa, even according to Rabbi Shimon. But nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that the Gemara seems to come to a conclusion here that Rabbi Yochanan does pass like Rabbi Yehuda. You just don't have a raya from one story, but Rabbi Yochanan does pass like Rabbi Yehuda about muksa. Can we push on? Okay, let's push on. Did Rabbi Yochanan really say halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yochanan said a general rule. We pass like a stam mishnah. Utnan, and we learned, and this is a brayso we just learned on Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis. Muchani, we're talking about the removable wheel. Muchani shalah, the wheel of a carriage. Bizman shehin shmetes, ein chiber lav. And the most important part was Vein Gorin Oisa b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to pull it on Shabbos. If there's money on it. And back there we were medayik that this brisa follows the shita of Reb Shimon because we said the apple gab the havu la ben hashmoshes. Even if there was money on this wagon wheel ben hashmoshes, the Gemara said we were medayik that it would be mutter still to pull the wheel. So that clearly is going according to Reb Shimon, because according to Reb Yehuda, if there's muksa on something ben hashmoshes, it would be muksa al Shabbos. So clearly this price is going according to Reb Shimon, and it's a stam mishnah. So how could Reb Yochanan pass like Reb Yehuda? So we have a stam mishnah that goes like Reb Shimon. So when we learned this Gemara, Duvi Menzelevsky asked a very good kasha. Duvi asked, who said over there the money wasn't on there? Maybe the money was on there from ben hashmoshes. Maybe if it's there on the wheel now, maybe it was on there ben hashmoshes as well. So similar to that is what the Gemara answers here as well. So Duvi's kasha then I sort of brushed off, but Lamaisa the Gemara likes Duvi's kasha, and the Gemara uses it to say that this Mishnah might not be going according to Reb Shimon, it might be going according to Reb Yehuda. Omer Abzer to Hamish Nosenu, maybe what the Mishnah says, Ha'ein alei moy shari, that's shaloi hayu alei moy kol ben hashmoshes. The deek is if there was no money on it, all ben hashmoshes, only then it won't be muksa. Now that's not really the Pashup Pshat of how you would learn that Mishnah. The Pashup Pshat is it's talking about money that was there b'shas ma'asen, not money ben hashmoshes. But the reason why we're willing to kvetch it into the Mishnah a little bit is shaloi lishbar devar Rabbi Yochanan, because we don't want to break Rabbi Yochanan's words, and we want to find some way to make Rabbi Yochanan's two psak halachas consistent. A, the psak that halacha is tam Mishnah, and B, the psak that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. So we'll kvetch a little bit to show that the Mishnah could be consistent with Rabbi Yehuda Shita. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Pam achas halach Rabbi le diuspora. Rabbi once went to diuspora. V'hayra b'menorah Reb Shimon. V'hayra b'menorah Reb Shimon bener. So we don't know exactly what this means. V'hayra b'menorah Reb Shimon bener. Iboilu, what does this mean? Does it mean hayra b'menorah Reb Shimon bener le'atera? Did he say that even by a candelabra it will not be muksa, just like Reb Shimon paskins by a ner? That's what it means. V'hayra b'menorah Reb Shimon bener. Oidoma, it's two separate statements. Hayra b'menorah li'isura. He paskins that a menorah is muksa, like we just had on Amud Beis. And by ner, Reb Shimon bener le'atera. Zaktamar Taker. We don't know. It's not clear from the exact quote of what Rabbi Paskin what he actually said. Malachia, Ikloy Reb Samloi, the Tiltal Shraga. Reb Malachia was by Reb Samloi, and he held him there after it went out. In other words, doing what Reb Shimon was matir, which Reb Yehuda answered. The Ikpid Reb Samloi. Reb Samloi was upset. Why are you being makel? Like Reb Shimon, you should be machmer like Reb Yehuda. Reb Yosy Galilah, Ikloy La'asad Reb Yosy Bar Chanina. Again, Tiltal Shraga. He also did the same thing. The Ikpid Reb Yosy Bar Chanina. And Rabbi Vo, he was a lot more politically correct. And what he did was, Ki Klei Lasher Reb Shua ben Levi have Metal Shraga because Reb Shua ben Levi passing like Reb Shimon. Ki Klei Lasher Reb Yochanan Lev Metal Shraga. But when he went to Rabbi Yochanan's place, he wouldn't carry it because he didn't want to fight. Manashich Ikar be the sphere lay Levet Reb Yehuda. If he held like Reb Yehuda, he should never carry this nair. Ikar Shimon sphere lay. If he held like Reb Shimon, then Liavet Reb Shimon. He should always go like Reb Shimon and always carry the nair. So tomorrow, I don't Reb Shimon sphere lay. Really, he holds like Reb Shimon. Rabbi Yochanan who do Avoid. In Rabbi Yochanan's domain, where Rabbi Yochanan was paskening, we know Rabbi Yochanan paskens like Rabbi Yehuda. So because of that, when Rabbi Shua ben Levi would go to Rabbi Yochanan's domain, he would respect Rabbi Yochanan's psak and he wouldn't carry the nair, even though Ba'atzim he held like Rabbi Shimon. If you have a nair that was lit with oil, went out, according to Reb Shimon, that's what you're allowed to carry. But the neft also little. If it was made out of neft, which is a very smelly, like we learned, then even Reb Shimon would be moida that a nair that can only be used for a nair, and therefore it would be muksa. Rabbi Reb Yosef Damit Havayu, the neft and nami shari little. Rabbi Reb Yosef held that you could be makel even a nair of neft, which smells very bad. That went out, you're also allowed to be metaltal. Okay, I think we better stop because it's 8:30. So we'll stop here. We made a little bit of headway because today's daf is Memvav and we're almost halfway there. Shkoyach. Have a wonderful day. Akiva, I listened